So this past weekend, I vended my first show in Bridgeport, West Virginia. It was only a 6-hour show, but I learned more in that 6 hours than I had in weeks leading up to it. I'm gonna break it down with you. What went right, what almost went wrong, and key takeaways that I think you should learn before you go ahead and vend your first show. All right, so the biggest win was preparation. I watched hundreds of videos. No, I watched some videos to figure out what other people were doing. I went to shows, I was taking mental notes, what they were doing. But that was the biggest element that set me up for success. I brought a wide variety of inventory. I had vintage, I had mid-era, I had e-readers, I had ultra-modern, $1 cards all the way up to several $100s. The very expensive cards had a lot of attention, but they did not move. Most of the cards that you sold were actually between that $1 and like maybe 40 at the high end. So the wide variety that I brought to the show was great. But the next thing that made that great was everything had a sticker. Everything was priced out so a customer could walk by, see a shiny card and like, oh, they only want 20 bucks for this. And it was really easy to make deals when people don't have to come up to you and cold approach you like, hey, what are you asking for this card? The transactions were so much quicker. So definitely that's a win, a maintain for the future. The third big win was the display cases. I actually used the display cases for my Learn How to Vend on a Shoestring Budget video. They're just bulletin boards. 70 bucks I think is what I had for each of them. I took 2 of them. I'm gonna keep using them to get my money's worth, but those will be in our lessons learned portion of this video. Fourth, I came prepared to take a plethora of payments. That means I had cash on hand to give change. A lot of ones I did almost run out a couple times, but also I had printed out little sheets that had QR codes with my PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, and Cash App. So if someone needed to do an electronic payment, there was no friction. We can close that deal, and as soon as I saw that come through, we're good to go. Now, if you're a vendor, just know you do have to sometimes pay a fee to get that cash to yourself if you want to use it in like your business checking or however you decide you want to get that money out. So cash really is king, and most of my customers did pay in cash. I'd say it was like 80% plus of my customers actually paid in cash. So cash really is king at these things. And then here's where things that could have been a little bit better. So while I was happy to have everything priced, and I was happy to have a large variety of cards with me, it took a long time to comp them, both condition checking and pricing. I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning and up at 6 to make sure that I had everything loaded and ready to go. And I still barely got set up for the show in time, and it started at 10. So if you have someone that can help you condition your cards, or you do your conditioning in the weeks leading up to the show or the days leading up to the show, and then comp everything the night before, it'll save you just a lot of heartburn. And that brings me to point number 2. Condition checking your cards very well. I had a vendor series Zapdos that I was trying to sell to a gentleman, and I had that thing as near mint. And he came by, he looked at it, I looked at it again, and we didn't even notice that the top corner was dinged until another customer came by, and I handed it to him. He's like, hey, you have a corner that has a pretty nasty ding on it. I mean, it wasn't a nasty ding, but it was definitely enough to take it all the way down and cut that value in half. Luckily, he came back, and I told him about it, and we were able to work a deal. He didn't even notice that damage was there. He was getting ready to hand me the full asking price for that near mint conditioning. But I told him what I had found, what had been told to me, open transparency. Because worst case scenario, he buys that card, realizes when he gets home and it's damaged, and he comes back to you like, hey, you sold me a damaged card at near mint. I didn't catch it at the time. And if you're like me, I would feel obligated to try to make that right. But there's no way to find out when that damage happened. So if you start earlier or you have another person helping you, condition checking can be a lot more fluid. Another thing I would do slightly differently is I would have a better tote. So I had this little cheapo Amazon wagon, and when I was setting it up, one of the wheels broke. So I didn't get to use it. And parking was like half a mile away from the venue. So loading up was easy. We were able to park right outside the venue, load everything up. When it came time to close, I was by myself. I had to hastily throw everything into cardboard boxes and walk half a mile. And I did almost drop all of my stuff on that first trip into some snow. Like, it could have been really bad. So lesson learned, buy a better tote or make sure your equipment works beforehand, because that really sucked. The next thing I learned, sealed product. A lot of people came by wanting to buy sealed product. I wasn't originally going to take it with me, but a vendor friend of mine said, hey, make sure you have some sealed because the demand for it's actually really high. Now, I did sell most of my sealed at cost to children. But yeah, there's a lot more demand for sealed than I would have expected. I did take a lot of sealed in trade, like a whole bunch of Prismatic Evolution mini tins. It was my first show and I didn't want to turn these deals down, and they kind of made sense at the time. You know, another challenge was table placement. If you look at the video, I was at the very end of the Pokemon row. I didn't have as many opportunities to buy or trade that I would have liked. I did end up making a lot of really nice deals. My inventory was depleted as far as singles go, but I picked up some pretty high-end stuff. But you know, that kind of lent itself into a psychological problem I had because I had so few people coming compared to the rest of the show. And I did have a lot of people coming. I was over eager to make a deal, and it's going to be up to you to decide that, like, hey, this isn't really a fair deal for both of us. Be firm but fair, and it's okay to say no. Psychologically, you're going to want to make that deal, because if you make that deal, numbers go up, cash comes in, inventory gets smaller or bigger depending on if you're buying, selling, or trading. But just know, don't get into like the rush of it. Like, holy crap, I'm a vendor at a show. I gotta show up. You don't have to say yes. If it doesn't sound good or it sounds too good, just pause. And know you don't have to take every deal that comes your way. At the end of the day, it should be a happy experience for both the buyer and the seller. Everybody should walk away from a transaction feeling like they got a fair bargain. You're gonna start off with whatever you can afford, but you're gonna want to invest in equipment that makes your life easier. You don't need the most expensive setup on day one, but having reliable cases, sturdy storage, and a way to transport your inventory without having to drag it through snow will just save you so much time, make life so much easier. Every bit of friction that you can remove from the whole process is going to save you tons of energy, and at a show, energy is currency. Second, this presentation matters a lot more than people realize. Another big takeaway is to learn your local market. Every show has a personality, whether you've been to a show, you haven't been to a show yet, you've vended many shows, you're getting ready to vend your first show. Some are heavily Pokemon, some lean more sports, some cater more towards bargain hunters, or filled with people chasing grails. Really, it depends on your locality, how big the show is. They're all different. The better you understand your crowd, the smarter you can be with what you bring. The first show, you're going to strike out a bit. You're going to have people looking for stuff that you probably should have brought, but you just didn't think about it. And other shows, you're just going to have people looking for crazy off-the-wall random stuff. Like, it happened a couple times. And I was actually able to cater towards a couple of those individuals because I'm into really weird things. Well, just niche cards. And then finally, just take some time and get to know the vendors around you. What surprised me is how welcoming a lot of them were. It's not just a competition, it's your network. Also, some of your best deals will come from other vendors. For example, I was able to secure, you can't see it, this PSA 10 Kingdra for a very good deal. You know, they gave me the lowdown on other shows to go to. You know, what shows you really need to bring a lot of stuff to, like if you're in the West Virginia area, the Huntington Mall, or up in Ohio, massive shows. You know, they even show out harder than the Pittsburgh shows. If you know somebody has a card, you can send a customer their way. They might reciprocate back. I saw a lot of that going on. Yeah, they gave me a lot of information that you just can't get from YouTube. They know your local area. And if they've been doing it for a while, they have a lot of good information, and a lot of them were giving really good deals or really good info. And in most cases, you know, that's its own currency. These are the people you trade with, you learn from them, you buy collections from, they'll help you buy collections. And you know, sometimes you lean on them when you need insight. And I definitely did on my first show. The guy next to me, Dominic, he was super useful. Your reputation starts building the moment you set up your first table. So be fair, be approachable, play the long game. You can fleece people to make a quick buck, but they'll remember you for good deals and they'll come back to you. So I hope. You know, in this hobby, relationships compound faster than almost anything else. And that's all I have.